Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with your favourite football analyst, Gareth, to talk about a disappointing performance, disappointing game. Brighton 1, Aston Villa 0. And Gareth, we do all the victories. We've had so many talking tactics after victories, after great performances. And we were just talking before we came on, we've got to come on and talk about the disappointing ones. And boy, Sunday was not only a disappointing game, but yeah, disappointing result, disappointing performance.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was sort of like, as you rightly said before we come on it, a bit of a damp squib. I think that's probably a fair way of putting it. It was, yeah, considering we sort of like turned them right over at Villa Park 6-1, and to go down there, I didn't think that would I thought it would be a tricky game, but I thought, given the form, but then when you looked at how tired we were and, in the previous game, and there was that little bit of worry, wasn't there? And it came to pass. And I said on our WhatsApp group that I thought a penalty would decide it, if you remember rightly. And all right, it didn't almost, but it almost did. So I think that was the way the game was going.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of those. And I said to Sam, it was a disappointing performance. Brighton were the better side. They weren't amazing, but it was one of those where the result at 1-0 to Brighton is again, we're talking about poor performance from Aston Villa. If it had been a draw, it'd have been, yes, poor performance, but we got away with it with a draw. And if we'd have won, it'd have been smash and grab, good defensive performance. We hung in there. It was kind of one of those games where any kind of assessment could have been gathered by that one goal or lack of goals.
Yeah, I think it was. And I think it was, like I said, it was going to be decided by that single goal. You could just say, could we sneak one, as you rightly say, and win the game? But we could have done, but we just didn't look like we would.
No. Well, we'll get into it because the images, the viz images that you've created definitely show that. And obviously the still images and the analysis that you've done will I'm sure shed some light onto that. So first of all, the tail of the tape, possession 52% to Brighton, almost 48 to Villa. Passes in the opposition half fairly similar. What's that PPDA again? Passes per defensive action.
Yeah, so that sort of measures pressing intensity, yeah.
Crossing equal, corners obviously Brighton dominating on corners, and then fouls fairly similar. But what did you devise from this kind of just overview?
Yeah, I think it was sort of a really reasonably even game, wasn't it? Even though we didn't play well, you can tell by just them numbers that I've selected there that, and I've not cherry picked them, they're just there. And you could see that a lot of it was a fairly equal game. The possession was pretty good. The passes in opposition half, we've actually, sort of gone up in that compared to what we did in the previous game where we very low numbers. And I think overall it was a fairly equal game. The pressing intensity was reasonably the same, but both teams kind of sat off that little bit more than what they probably would used to. But yeah, judging by that, it's an even game, isn't it? But
yeah. But I guess that's the frustration, isn't it? Because you had a situation where Brighton, yes, you can use the old cliches on the beach, but you just see that if there was just that little bit of increase in intensity or increase of risk taking, we could have maybe got more out of the game.
I think we should have done. I think if we would have played our normal game and done the thing, I think we probably would have done. I think Rodgers going off massively affected us.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the passing network. So it's kind of back to the normal situation of passing it across the back, but not too many incisive passes, I would say, or any threatening passes. Almost like that X threat value doesn't get any above 0.15, and that's Diego Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't often see such high intensity of the red lines across, across the whole of the back four. We normally see that sort of from Martinez to Powell out to Dina, don't we? We don't always see it between the two centres and across that back four. And that just shows you what we were trying to do. We were just trying to keep the ball, and that's basically what it was. But I think Ollie Watkins, 7 passes. I think Moussa Diaby, I think 9 passes in total for the whole game. There's no balls into them whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I was listening to it mainly on the radio. So I've obviously caught quite a lot of the highlights, and there was a couple of times where they were saying that Watkins was dropping deep for the ball, partly because they were saying he had to. But in those situations, you've got to, like, Diaby should have been doing it, Bailey should have been doing it, Watkins should have been doing it, and then what you need then is runners in behind those players to be able to maneuver the Brighton defence, and that just didn't seem like it was happening at all.
No, and that leads us on to the slides in a little bit, doesn't it? With the width and everything, I think the players could have they were a bit too rigid in their position, and a lot of the time, whether they were tired, I don't know, or whatever. But yeah, you're dead right. They could have moved a little bit more. Watkins has got to be that focal point, and I think for me, that's one thing that he does need to improve. And yeah, he can hold the ball up well, but we saw it against Chelsea. The ball, we highlighted it on air. The ball bounces off him quite a bit. He's just got to improve that little bit more in that aspect.
Yeah. In terms of the passing locations, not a great deal to write home about for Villa. Quite a lot of threatening passes into the box from us. Obviously, Brighton had quite a few corners. Is that what you're kind of devising from that?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it, we can see that Adingra played on the left-hand side for Brighton, didn't he? And we can see a lot of that. They're trying to get the ball out to him a great deal. So I think that was a lot of the focal point. They really did try to get him up against Ezri Konsa. And it worked. I think really it worked for them.
It did. Yeah, he was featured heavily, and he gave Konsa a tough old afternoon. Yeah. Now, these two slides I'm not going to spend a lot of time on at all, but we'll have a look. I mean, two shots.
I mean, let's wait till we see the next one. It's even worse.
and then the timeline. That's almost embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, Villa, it says 0.064. It was actually more like 0.05, I think, in total that FOTMob had it on. 2 shots throughout the whole game amounted to 0.05. What does that tell us? Does it tell us that, again, we point to the fact that we were tired, or were Brighton that good defensively? No, I don't think they were. I just don't think we did enough.
Yeah. Just while I get the slides, the analysis up for Gareth, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, help us on the road to 4K. Very, very close now, and it'll be great to get there before the end of the season. So onto this first slide, we've got quite a few, so really good analysis again, Gareth. So Brighton out of possession. What are you seeing here? Obviously focused on Veltman and Diaby, and a little bit with Rodgers.
Yeah, I just want I've combined a few aspects here in one slide, just for the ease of quickness, really. And you can see that Brighton here in a 4-3-3 almost, but they build up when they're in possession. They actually build up with 3 at the back, with just Webster, Dunk, and Igor. So Veltman pushes onto this right-hand side a little bit. And I think that caused Moussa Diaby and Aston Villa a little bit more of a problem. Now, all right, he wasn't used a great deal, but it doesn't matter, because it's all about positioning and filling those gaps and everything else. The second aspect I wanted to ask, but it's sort of Morgan Rodgers. This is his role sort of thing. Now, Villa build up with a 4-2-1-3. It's usually a 4-2-5, okay, or 4-2-3, but that's just the way it is. But I think Rodgers coming into this central position is what Emery likes him to do. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, it's good, but you've got to be able to use the ball to him. And I think our central passing is where we sort of build up. We like to play through, and Rodgers can pick up the ball on the half turn, like JJ likes to do, and turn and run at the thing. But Brighton kind of blocked that off. So we were kind of in a little bit of, well, can we sort of do something different? And we couldn't really.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of bits I can see here that could have happened. Again, we talked about the dropping off, like Watkins could come into here, Diaby can spin in behind, Rodgers could come across a little bit more here. Then you've got 2 players coming in behind. You could have Dougie coming into here, and then a quick run round the corner to Diaby. Like, it just, like you said, it's just too rigid. There's not enough. You can see from this, obviously it's a still image, but you can see from this, there doesn't seem to be any players initiating any sort of move.
No. No, it was very much like that. And I think this is the trouble you have away from home. If you've got Konsa at right back, your only outlet out wide is through Luca Digne, really.
Yeah. What issues did Villa have then in dealing with Brighton in possession that you've highlighted here as well?
Yeah, this kind of alludes to the previous slide. So now Joel Veltman is down this bottom right-hand side. We can't see him. We can't see him because he's out of shot. But look what's happening there. So Brighton building up with a 3. Now Rodgers has got to drop deeper there for a start. Douglas Luiz has got to drop deeper there. And so's John McGinn. that back four has got that pretty much covered across there. There's no need for three attacking players to be on those Brighton centre backs. They're not going to get the ball. Even if they do, that's Watkins' job to press that. Rodgers and Bailey have got to drop wide. So we've got to be in that 4-4-2. Bailey top, wide right. You've got McGinn and Louise in the central. Diaby drop deeper because Diaby's man is Joel Veltman. It's not anybody else. It's Joel Veltman now. So just play that 4-4-2 like we always do it. Rodgers just or the 4-4-1-1. Rodgers presses just in behind Watkins. Be a little bit more stable so Gilmore can't get on the ball with Rodgers around him. Be in that 4-4-2. It's kind of a little bit all over the shop.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, Kev was at the game and he said it had a feel of pre-season about it, and this kind of distances between the positions of where the players should be indicates that there's a little bit of it's a little bit messy and it's a little bit like half paced. They should be back into that position and then attack from that, and then close down from that position. But it's almost like they're just like, oh yeah, I'll get back there in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether it's a pre-season game or it's a Champions League final, your shape is dictated by how you want to play. You've got to be there.
Yeah, agreed. Too much width. What were you kind of picking up here, mate?
Yeah, so you talked about at the top of the show about players sort of coming into positions and spinning in behind and things like that. One of your first points was that. And this kind of what I was alluding to when I said, later on in the show, we'll see it. Just come narrow. You've not got to stay wide there. You've got a back four there. And so two Brighton centre-halves, Duncan Webster, they've only got to deal with Ollie Watkins. That's all they've got to deal with, centre-halves. Come inside, position yourself onto those fullbacks so that therefore the man on the ball, which is Morgan Rodgers there, has got three passes in behind he could possibly play there. Bailey's a bit of a difficult one, but that pass to Moussa Diaby is on. That is on. If you can play that right. But Diaby's got to be 10 yards further forward than that. And why have we got John McGinn and Douglas Luiz both sitting as holding midfield players there?
Yeah. For me, like there with Diaby, he's kind of doing half and half. Like if he is going to stay wide, then go out wide and make the angle so that Veltman has to like turn his body the other way. But he's not. He's doing half, or be right here.
Yeah.
So then he sees the pass behind him, and then he's kind of the defender's in no man's land, but he's kind of not doing anything there because if Rodgers does play the pass, Veltman can get back into it easy. If he tries to look at him wide, he can't do that. And then, like you say, Bailey should be on the shoulder here, so then he spots it, and it has to be like a really well-timed pass. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, there's loads of situations there. Maybe Rodgers is trying to commit one of them, and then it then becomes a really difficult pass again. So. Yeah, absolutely. He needed more. He needed more kind of options to make up his mind, and it was a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a little bit half and half.
Another aspect I've sort of kind of just seen as of there as well. Why is Luca Dina on the halfway line? He's normally in crossing positions, looking to get in behind as well. And it's kind of like maybe we were a bit more reserved. Maybe Emery didn't want to lose the game in the first half. He sort of wanted to try and tire people out, and so that we could then sort of attack the second half a little bit. But it's just a little bit lackluster.
Yeah. It's a shame. Watkins' positioning. He didn't. You said hardly any real interactions with the ball. What was it? 3 passing actions that he dropped deep. Was that what you said? Something like that?
I think it was 6. Yeah. I think it was 6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what was could he have done with his positioning? I mean, you're indicating here just get into the box basically.
And that's exactly it. Why are you a centre forward who's normally playing in the box? Who you've been told by Unai Emery publicly that you want to be playing, that you should be playing in the box more. Why are you out there? Why is Douglas Luiz not pushing in for that little pass? Luca Dean is in a decent position here on the ball, looking for a cross. Ollie Watkins is not. He's not even in the box. I mean, push John McGinn in there into that gap so that he can fill that gap that Watkins is left. You'd have 4 Villa players in the box, and you're looking probably at a 4-on-4 there. So and Luca Dean is more than able to get across in and things. It's just a little bit positioning. Fill those gaps. Get Watkins in the box.
Yeah. It seemed like we just didn't want to take any risks in the game, but it just seems really strange.
But that's not a risk. That's not a risk.
No, that's what you should be doing. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. player shape and player position. What's out of possession shape? Sorry, and player positioning. What's is this kind of indicating it was just a little bit of a mess?
It's just too deep. You've got all 10 players back there when you've still got 3 sort of Brighton players in the middle of third. Just push up that little bit more. Matty Cash is a right-sided winger when he's come on in this, if you like, a right midfielder. Got no need to be there. This is his man on the ball. Ezri Konsa's got to be pushing in a bit more. There's no other wide player there. That's Matty Cash's man. Why is he in there for? And push up a little bit. We didn't play the high line. I don't know why. Maybe because Brighton haven't got that much pace in behind. I don't know. But the line was so disorganised a lot of the time. And you can see here that Leon Bailey, just push up a little bit. Like I said, Diaby there into that space. Give Brighton something else to think about in the transitions. It was just a bit messy and, and almost lazy.
Yeah. Well, a lot on internet, a lot on Twitter, on the internet has been that Villa have kind of lacking a little bit of energy. Emery didn't want to hear that. He wanted to hear positivity. I do sometimes think, maybe I'm being a little bit contradictory here, but because I don't think players read too much on social media and things like that. But I do think that if the message is constantly put out there that players are tired, lacking energy, played too many games, there is a kind of osmosis that then goes into your head, and then maybe you transmit that to the pitch. I don't know. Maybe they are actually tired, but you're thinking, like, when you're winning, when you're in this position, surely you just want to play matches. When you're in a situation like Ollie Watkins and you're on the verge of 20 goals, surely you just want to be scoring goals. Like, it just seems a little bit counterproductive to keep saying that they're tired.
Yeah, I mean, they are fit as butcher's dogs, as we all know, most of them. But the trouble is at this point of the season, I think we've seen it, not just us. We've seen it with a lot of teams with injuries.
Absolutely.
They are tired. It's not just them. And I think they might read the odd paper in the mornings, maybe in the canteen. I don't know. But, it's one of them things. But, yeah, I do think they're tired. It's not a massive excuse. And I think he's covering that. But they are tired. You can see it.
Yeah, it's more about options, isn't it, from the bench as well? Yeah. You looked at it, and maybe that is a situation. He hasn't used Irugbonham. He hasn't used he's used Duran very sparingly as well. Is that a situation where he could have maybe used one or two or more of those players? Would Irugbonham have done any worse in that midfield than McGinn and Louise at the moment? Like, it's just. Yeah, obviously we've had a fantastic, phenomenal season, but it does look like we're going to the well with a number of these players, and you think maybe an extra half an hour, 45 minutes game for an Irugbonham or a Duran might have meant that it would have paid off later down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of that, and I think a lot. I was thinking about it yesterday. There's a lot of sort of worry for next season, almost, to me, in a way, because we've seen what happens to the likes of West Ham, Burnley, Wolves in previous seasons who've been involved in European competitions on a Thursday. It really does affect them, not just for this season, but it seems to be the following season as well. And I think if we can sort of consolidate a top 6 even next year, I think that, and still be in the Champions League and do reasonably well in that, I think that'll be a good second season, almost in Europe, because I think, judging by what we've seen now with fitness issues, players being injured and things like that, this squad has got to be massively upgraded as well. It's got not just for quality as well, not so much, but bodies, just general bodies.
Yeah.
And I think I think it comes when a manager comes down to trust and things like that. But I think you're right. There are certain games where Irugbonham and Duran probably could have played. The trouble is that you're trying to consolidate a top 4. You're not trying to consolidate. You sort of get into the top 6.
And give youngsters experience and stuff like that. Are you? Yeah.
No.
It's such a conundrum. It is. Hopefully, we've got a couple of players coming back. I don't think that they will be 100% fit, but I think an 80-85% fit Martinez, an 80-85% fit Tielemans, Moreno as well. Obviously, was on the bench. Zaniolo coming back as well, hopefully. So at least that will give us a little bit more impetus going into these final 3, hopefully 4 games. And we've got to seal that Champions League spot, haven't we? And, Tottenham obviously doing us a lot of favours at the moment. It is looking good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of got away with it almost. Yeah. I mean, judging by Palace last night, that's going
to be a tough game.
It's a banana skin for us. Liverpool, I think, is going to be also now obviously a tricky game. But what I would say is that look how much we've missed Boubacar Kamara. I
Mm.
think he is that man. I think you can talk about Buendia and Tyrone Mings and Martin is missing the odd game, but that midfield looks very tired. It looks very sort of disorganised with that, and you need that breaker up of play. I think he is the biggest miss for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It just comes down to, like I've just said, options. If you've got Kamara, Louise, McGinn, and Tielemans as your, four that you're potentially rotating in for different games, it's a huge, huge boost.
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, we've literally got Louise and McGinn, and he Iriguanan very, very sparingly. So it just automatically hamstrings him in terms of what options he's got. And then you're having to go with, at the moment, he's having to go with Rodgers, Diaby, Bailey, and Watkins as a front four, and almost just say, right, you four do what you can. And again, physically, sometimes they're struggling. Bailey's playing with a bit of an injury as well. It's just, if we don't get off to a really good start in games, you can see that we're kind of struggling sometimes to have the difference makers. But I'm sure we'll get there. I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll push on, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful effort from all of the players. And I'm sure we just need one final push. Olympiacos on Thursday. Why not? Why not? Why can't we do it?
Because we're tired, we're
Yeah,
knackered.
I know. I've just given all the reasons before, but
I
you just
mean,
never
I don't
know.
know
You
what you
just
want me
never
to
know.
say.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big ask. Personally, I think it's a big ask. I really do.
yeah.
I think depending if they've got, unless they've got every day off up until Wednesday afternoon, they'll probably be all right. But yeah, I think it's a big ask. But they'll give it. You don't know what can happen in Europe. But my goodness, having watched Olympiacos, that's a really, really tricky place to go when you're 2 goals down.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I would be giving them every day off till tomorrow and just travel over, have the team meeting. I don't think they need anything else other than that, and just give them the rest. Emery did say that rest is the next thing that they need to do, and just get them. They know what they need to do, so they don't necessarily need too much in terms of training. Yes, meeting in terms of how we're going to play and how we're going to approach the game, but they just need to rest their bodies.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I also thought about the other days that why he hasn't changed the shape at all, has he? To try and sort of maybe could he have done that? Maybe I mean, who are we to question him, of course,
Yeah.
but could he have done something with that to try and negate a little bit of a sort of tiredness? I don't think he probably could, to be honest. I think we play the way we play, and that's the way he wants it. But yeah,
Yeah,
moving forward, let's see.
exactly. Look, it's been an amazing season. Let's get over the line. Whether we hobble over it, crawl over it, sprint over it, who cares? Who cares? But Gareth, thank you again for your amazing analysis. Where can people find you? Getting more and more popularity on X as it is now. So yeah, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Analytics GC and obviously gcanalytics.net and or at that Karate JC.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. We'll be back with Fans Forum tonight, as this is Tuesday. So Tuesday night is Fans Forum night. Get your comments in, get your questions in. Make sure you hit the like button. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.